I'm really excited about this next session and delighted to welcome to the stage once again. We saw him yesterday afternoon, a longtime friend of MPW and one of the guys who contributes to this industry so incredibly all over the world. Delighted to be joined by Mike Nishi, the Chief Operating Officer of Chicago Event Management. I always get that wrong, Mike.
Yeah, we
and
got
the
that.
Bank of America Chicago Marathon. And we're going to be joined in a moment, I believe on the screen, Sean, by Tony Bonney, who is the Managing Director and Head of Strategy of Grow on Purpose. Tony with us? Joining us from Hobart in Tasmania.
Rich, did you hear that one? Hobart. You know where that is?
Hey, Tony. Good morning. Wonderful to see you. Can't hear Tony's sound, please. Can you hear us, Tony?
I can.
And we can hear you now. Wonderful to see you.
Okay, fantastic.
Wonderful.
All right. I'm just saying thank you for having me back in Bangkok. It's been a long time since I've been there, so it's really nice to be back in town.
Virtually is better than not at all, isn't it?
It really is.
I'm really excited for this session for a number of reasons, and one of them being that this was actually birthed, I believe, as a result of MPW 21. We had Mike in the hot seat with you, and you grilled him more viciously than our innovation spotlight people were in the hot seats here with Raj yesterday. No, you were kind to him, but you did an amazing hot seat with Mike. That built a relationship, and there's been an incredible journey. And essentially what we're going to be doing today is a little bit of a case study of the journey that the two of you have been on, and also Mike's organization around embedding purpose in your business and the huge impact that's made on your business and the community that you're involved in. And I'd love to maybe just start by throwing it over to Tony to just give a little bit of a setting the scene of how you and Mike came together. And then I'm going to start asking Mike a few questions, give you a little moment before I really put you in the hot seat, Mike.
So Chris, this happens when we get older. It was actually 2020, believe it or not. It was a virtual conference.
Yeah, I am getting old.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so I don't know, my memory's going too, let me tell you. And we staged a few hot seats where we talked to 3 organisations essentially about what mattered to them and how they were trying to bring it to life in their events. And Mike was a real challenge, because the fact was he is really bringing it to life in his events. But there's something that happened in that conversation that I think has been really special for me, and I think also for Chicago Event Management, is that what we found was that they're an organisation that were really wanting to push further and further and further into something else. You know, they weren't satisfied with who they are. They really wanted to be very, very clear about what they wanted to be as an organisation. And the 2 founders, Kerry Kinkowski and Mike, a very specific character, very specific personality, and that character and personality permeates through the business. And so the work that we've undertaken together really is about creating this sustainable expression of Mike and Kerry and letting it rip. And that's really what we're in the middle of at the present time.
Wonderful, and sustainable. Again, you know, Mike is passionate about environmental sustainability, and I so often see our industry starting to embrace sustainability, but with sometimes this narrow focus on environmental sustainability, and there are so many more elements, and I'm really excited to explore that during the process of the conversation. Mike, why don't we start, your purpose, fearlessly expanding the boundaries of human potential. Talk to us a little bit about it, what that means and what brought you to come, because my sense is that sometimes people really struggle to discover their purpose, and people that are very clear on their purpose and in many ways are fortunate. So tell us a little bit about that journey and how you were able to articulate that so clearly, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and thanks, Tony. And again, I think the opportunity to connect us both, I just want to go back up and thank you for that opportunity. And if it weren't for Mass Participation World bringing us together, and we only connected virtually, and the first time that we did meet was at the Sydney Marathon this year in person. So it was a great opportunity and a wonderful time to meet you, Tony, in person, and what a lovely meal that we had together. And no better way to meet a friend in person than over great food. But again, I think there was a lot of things that we were successful that I feel in terms of where we were at that point, from the Bank of America Chicago Marathon, who we were, Chicago Event Management, to manage and operate those events. And I think over those years, of course, we had to really focus on what the event was and how to make it successful. And there was a lot of things that we were doing from an operational aspect. We knew in order to continue to grow, we really focused on the operations of the event. Of course, you need to have a great foundation to continue to build. And over time, that operations focus, the logistics focus really paid off for us. And then it became more reputational in terms of how do we focus on our reputation, how do we grow that, continue to do all the great work from an operations aspect, and then continue to focus on our reputation as well. And fortunately and unfortunately, but during the time of COVID, I think a lot of us had the opportunity, a lot of hard work, but also a lot of self-reflection. And this was the time that we had with Tony to really dig deep and understand what our purpose is. You know, we've talked a lot about what was important to a company, what was important to the event, but we didn't really understand and dive deep enough and open ourselves up to be vulnerable to understand what's important to us as individuals, and how can we see that through our team, how can we see that through our organization, and that carried through our work. So it was a great opportunity to work with someone that was so skilled as Tony to kind of dig and explore that. And I can tell you, it was a long process. And I thought it was like, oh, we're going to go through this and just come up with the standard kind of mission, vision, and values that you typically see. And out of the work, you really understood, you know, how hard or important it was to understand what's important to each of us as the owners and founders, and to express in terms of this is what the company should be about. So in terms of that was the opportunity and the work, and of course we can talk a little bit more about what that is. And again, it's about the human potential, and I think that's something that came up that Rich had mentioned too. And I don't think you can see Rich in the audience here, Tony, but he is from Hobart, Australia, and I told him that you were joining as well. So I think it's going to be necessary to definitely connect you too. But it's the things that Rich was saying as well. You know, I think that we as all human beings, we have potential. I think we're all, there's all good in all people, regardless. And I think that we all are there to help one another and push each other's potential. And I think that's within our event staff. You see that with our volunteers, our workforce, as well as our participants. So really when we started to focus on that, I think that kind of carries through and resonates with anyone that associates or is part of our organization or the events that they participate in.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, I'd even say that you're not happy unless you're out on the boundaries of your potential. You know, it's just an absolute part of your character. There's no doubt about it. And I think this is the really important thing for founder-led organizations as much as anything else, that the character of the founder can be true, because that truth is what creates sustainability for the organization. You know, Barry and Mike's workplace, it's a place for advanced users, let me tell you. You know, if you go to work at Chicago Event Management, you are going to be one of the most amazing mass participation event managers in whatever your skill set is that's possible, because they are constantly out on the edges of what they can do. How can we do more? How can we do it better? And it's not something that's around just creating for creation's sake. It's actually more aligned to this concept that Simon Sinek has of the infinite gain. And it's this concept that, you know, in the mass participation context, each event is just the next expression of the organization. And there's another one coming, and another one coming, and another one coming, and it doesn't stop, right? And so the idea that there's an endpoint is a fallacy. So what sustains us? Well, Chicago Event Management, they know, guess what? When I turn up to work, I'm going to be pushing all day long. You know, when I'm a stakeholder or partner with Chicago Event Management, I'm going to be pushed all day long. You know, it's just the truth. And so you can engage in partnership and differentiate in from a very sustainable and true place. I reference Professor Gergenov's comment there about struggling with identity, and I think this directly addresses that. You know, that idea that if you can understand your identity and your character, and you can work out what's important to you, you can start to articulate that to your team and to your customers and to your partners, and you can start to ideate with them in that space. You know, and that, because when Mike talks to, Bank of America, for example, they know Mike is going to keep pushing. They just know he is. You know, and that's just the truth of it. You know, so I think that's the reason why. I resonated so quickly with Mike, and the reason why the work's been so fulfilling is because we were able to bring out a full expression of that character of both Mike and Kerry in bringing that to life for them.
I love that, and that never a finish line really comes back to our industry, isn't it? Like, not only in the journey year round, but even on event day. I've had a number of situations standing in the command center of the Singapore Marathon, and the winner crosses the line, and you see people start to relax, and it's, hey guys, the job's just starting now. This whole, on race day, it goes on way past the finish line, and then as soon as you get past that finish line, you pick it up and again, and without that kind of commitment and purpose and understanding of why you're there, it can be difficult. So let's touch on how that's helped during these COVID times. I mean, lots of fatigue, virtual fatigue. Give us some examples of how you brought that back into the industry and the team who weren't able to connect face to face, and within that you obviously had some transition. So I'm wrapping a few things into one, but talk about the work that you did with Tony and how that impacted the team and brought you through the COVID time, please.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have come at a better time when we desperately needed it as, the event leaders within our company, as well as the team and their direct reports. We were all languishing, where we were in terms of a company, and all of you as well. I don't think we were all any different than one another. I think the only difference was, or probably was back then, is where we were working and maybe how we were working at times. But I all think we were all struggling. And all the different calls and opportunities we had to connect, again, thanks to Alessio and World Athletics and Mass Participation World, connecting us virtually, you can hear and you can see the stress that was carried in all of us. We were hearing about it, and unfortunately, we couldn't even connect with our partners, or our team members at the office, and we needed that social fabric and that connection, and we didn't have that part. So I think this work really helped us to understand what we were all going through. And for many of you, and just because we're a big event with the Chicago Marathon, we're a small company that runs and operates the properties for our major client, Bank of America. But I think I think I lost that point, but one of the things that I feel that was truly necessary is how do we recognize each individual in terms of what was necessary. Everyone was suffering, everyone was languishing, and we really needed to focus on that. We lost a number of team members as well during the transition. I think, anyone else in the audience here, do we lose staff members? And we had gaps. And then going into last year, it was really, really challenging to produce an event first time after COVID with the limited staff. And one of the things that was really important through this work is identify our purpose. So when we could recruit new team members and get back up to whole, we really found a great team that aligned in terms of this new purpose. And when we inculcated and continued to talk about what was important to us as founders, what was truly important from a purpose standpoint from our organization, we really have, and this is our current team, have found the team that I know that will be here for quite a long time. And by being able to reflect this and communicate this continuously, they might not align with our exact purpose that we have as founders. I hope that will be the case. However, I think it also gives them confidence to say, we have a purpose as well, and we want to have and share that. So it helps develop the culture within our organization, and we want to help support that through events and through their work and the events that we create. So that's really what it's really helped us. It helped us better connect with each one of our team members, and I think that's really important. It's going to be really important in the long run to continue to retain our current team as long as we possibly can. And I think it was mentioned yesterday in terms of the new work dynamic that Stuart had mentioned. And someone had asked from this in the audience is like, will we see turnover from our staff, continuously? I truly feel in this new work environment, I'd say yes. I think we need to be better prepared for that by better educating, by doing the proper documentation, institutional continuity planning, et cetera, is getting important for the company, the health of the organizations. But at the same time, I would encourage that. I want to spend the time and understand what's important to each of our team members to help develop them. And I hope they do go out, and I hope they do excel in their careers, because at some point there's been many boomerangers that have come back to work with us, and they're bringing back new experiences back to our organizations, even making us better and stronger in the long run. So, we're not going to be in fear of losing our team anymore, just because we know from our purpose, and our purpose value is that we want to invest in each individual to make them better.
Yeah, and I think you've spoken a number of times, and I've always known you for this. You speak about stakeholders and the ecosystem. It's not just about us in a myopic way looking at our own team. It's what you're contributing to the ecosystem. And you talk about that boomerang. Not only do they maybe come back to you, but they end up working for a supplier or somewhere like that. And it all, you're contributing to improving the level of the community. We spoke in Singapore in Tony might have to help me with the date again, but rise the tide and all the boats rise. But with that approach of not jealously guarding this team, and hell, they go on and they part in bad ways, as opposed to go with our blessing. We're delighted, and as Tony said at the start, you're sending people out into the ecosystem with a great skill set that helps to benefit the entire industry. I want to pick up there, and Tony, give you the opportunity to come back in as well, but I'm guessing the challenge that many founders face, and we're a room full of entrepreneurs, when's the time to step away and bring other people in? My sense is the work that you've done is going to empower that when the day comes. It might not be next year, it might not be for 5 years or 10 years, but you'll be able to look back on that legacy with an organization that in many years' time, and hopefully decades' time, will be saying, this is the purpose that we baked into that organization. You may be watching from the sidelines, but it's continued. Talk about the importance of that, please, Tony, and then maybe tie it back with some of the conversations that you've had.
No, certainly. Look, I think the key about this is the way in which purpose creates context for people to decide to be of service, right? So Mike's put it on the table, fearlessly expanding the boundaries of human potential. That's what we're here to do, right? So you can decide, regardless of what your personal purpose is, and your longer term view of what it is you want to do for your life, you can decide whether doing this for now is what you want to do, and you gift your service for that period of time. And that's the new dynamic in employee relations, actually. We need to understand that servant leader mindset, and that people are gifting their service to us for a period of time in exchange for some key things: money, experience, personal growth. Name 2 or 3 other things are important to young people in particular, and that's what you've got to provide. So in terms of creating a stable workforce, the best way to do that, if you're really clear on your purpose and your values and your mission, is to go through that every time in pronouncing your proposition to your team and the ways in which you want to participate in that, and they get to choose. And that personal choice is what creates commitment. You don't have compliance then, you've got commitment. And I have no doubt that Mike and Kerry's team knew that they were all about expanding the boundaries of human potential, because it felt like that anyway. But being able to articulate that, put that into a conscious conversation, enables there to be a conscious response from others. And this plays also, Chris, into that piece that's about succession planning, right? We're all only here for a certain period of time, and that's it. That's just the truth of it. And we all hold a view of the world that's based on our experience, the things that are important to us, why we show up every day, and they're all individual. But what will happen is there will be a time and place in the future where leaders start to emerge at Chicago Event Management that want to explore what fearlessly expanding the boundaries of human potential could look like differently from Mike and Kerry. And the really clever operators, those whose businesses are multi-generational, welcome that challenge, because they know at some point in time their view of that will be a limitation. Right? And so how do I gift my purpose, what I established here, to others to do with what they will? and how can we see what happens from there? Now, for a founder, that's really hard because you've spent 20, 30, 40, 50 years building something, right? But did you build it to die with you? Or did you build it to create something that was beyond you and then enabled opportunity for others? Both those answers could be true, right? But you need to know which one it is and understand that moment in time where you release it to others because you will be a limitation eventually.
And I'm guessing that's current right now. So talk about, please, how this has helped you to empower that team now as well, to be able to kind of step away. They're all clear on what that purpose is. And I'm assuming that whilst there was this transition period of lots of work, and you've alluded to it, you're now kind of laying that foundation where it's ultimately freeing you up to be able to focus on other areas once you get through that transition. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. In terms of, making we trust in our team, and they understand in terms of the direction that we're going in our company as well as the events. And the things that we talked about and you heard yesterday, our team is willing to take on a lot more. And a lot of these new initiatives and what's important to the organization and all the different programs that we're taking on and keep challenging ourselves to be better, the enhancements to development, we know that it's clear and in terms of what some of those objectives are that they can do and they want to take on. And it's really encouraging them to take on different initiatives on their own that we want to support that continues to grow, and they challenge their team members. And whether it's the committee that we have internally for DEI initiatives, a different committee involved with our CEM staff engagement teams, they're forming their own organizations that's on, work on top of their current work. They're doing and helping support one another, upskilling, learning how other team members are working with them and by their side. So again, it's like you can take that step back and they're taking charge and not just doing what's necessary to produce an event. Of course, at the end of the day, we need to produce an event, but they're really doing it in the way that they want to. They don't have to follow the way that I typically would prescribe versus what they know what the end goal is, and then they're encouraged to take on different challenges and challenge themselves and their team members, so it's just continually growing. It's just amazing to see, and it's been happening in a short amount of time. It just took us to have that courage from the beginning to recognize in terms of, hey, we know that we're not doing a lot of things right, as Tom had mentioned at the earlier presentation, and being able to be vulnerable and saying, well, what is it we're not doing right? The engagement committees telling us is like, these are things that they feel that they need better. Being transparent and having that conversation back to leadership. They're not happy about this or that, but that's okay. We've created that trust amongst the team. Now you can have conflict, now you can have ownership, and now you can have commitment for that shared goal. So it's really, truly been just eye-opening in terms of how important this work has been. Hopefully many of you are already been doing this, and I'm new to the game, but I tell you, it has been an eye-opening experience in terms of me personally better identifying what's been important to me and what was driving a lot of things and how I've been working, et cetera, as well as being able to communicate what's been important to the founders and seeing that work and why we do what we do at the level and how much time we put into it.
And let's maybe take a bit of time to talk about that process. You spoke about vulnerability, you spoke about the work. We've got a lot of people sitting here. We know that much of the audience, the industry is exhausted right now. You made a comment earlier, it couldn't have come at a better time. And from a mindset perspective, that's wonderful, because there's probably many people saying, oh, this is so terrible, what do I do? You're embracing the opportunity, albeit that you had all these other pressures that were on you. Can you maybe, for those that are sitting in the room with this kind of, oh, this is too hard, it's going to cost me too much money, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources, recognizing that there might be some people sitting here saying, it's okay for him to say he's the Bank of America Chicago Marathon and I'm a small organization and we've got a mix of suppliers and race organizers. And maybe between the two of you, you can talk to that. I don't mind whoever you goes first, but just give us a sense of the process, and who would like to pick that one up?
Yeah, maybe Tony, you could better articulate the process.
I find that sleep deprivation and then overloading sugar is the two best ways to actually get the outcome we're looking for. So, no, look, it's when you're talking about a founder-led organization, the truth is it's facilitating a conversation between the two founders before it's doing anything else. And so you have to create time for that to occur. Because when you've been working together for a long time in particular, a lot of assumptions start to emerge between you. And so the very first thing is checking in on what actually matters to us as founders and as leaders. And then the next part of the process is actually then working out why those things matter so that we can pay attention to them, you know. And there are things about Mike and Kerry's backgrounds and, you know, et cetera, that really have fed their story as to why they're so successful, to be truthful. Yeah. And so the process did take a little bit of time and, to be truthful, probably longer than they sometimes do. But it was because there was that really important conversation that had to be had in the very first instance.
Yeah.
I'm not a purpose purist, right? So I don't believe that you've got to have something nailed down that is a forever thing, right? My view is you've got to have something that you can work with to work out if it's true or not, you know? And you let it iterate and emerge. And that certainly is what happened in the process with Mike and Kerry. Things we thought that might be important actually ended up being prioritised down, to be honest, in the process. I think the thing that was really great was when we got a chance to take it to the team. And the amount of nodding of, oh, okay, now I know. It was really great. I don't know if you experienced that too, Mike, but I certainly did.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And one of the things that I just am recalling, you know, going through this exercise in terms of digging deep and revealing who you are. And of course we know who we are, but sometimes we kind of keep that down and you don't want that to come up. You repress that. But, you know, some of the things growing up, I, you know, didn't have a lot growing up. And even starting it, it's reflected in terms of where Chicago Marathon was years ago. And I think many of you might know. In terms of being founded in '77, back there in the running boom, it was pretty big, and then it kind of tailed off. And when Kerry and I started working together in 1989, we might have, if you rubbed a few people together, 5,500, 6,000 participants. And there's truly only two of us working on the event. And we didn't have many friends in the industry. We were a small dog. You could see that there were a couple people and good friends of ours that gave us that opportunity, gave us a look behind the curtain. And then there was other organizations and events that didn't. And we knew that those that invested their time and were willing to give us more information to see our purpose and our potential, we never forgot. And we said, you know what, we're never gonna be this other group. We're gonna be the ones that want to invest in other people, invest in our industry, and continue to do what we do and why we're here today, sharing common and best practices. And I truly feel that, you know, I wasn't able to articulate that until going through this process. And then you really could see it's like it was there, but we weren't able to identify it, articulate it. And now with the team, now they can understand. And Rich said, it's like, it was a fun comment, but Rich says, do you work or do you always just travel? And it is both. It's a passion of mine because there's so much to share. And like Tony said, we're not here for a long time, and we want to make other people successful. If we can share an idea and you can take that further and faster than we can, we want you to start somewhere we've already started. Don't start from scratch. And I think that's something that, you know, for all of us and those that might know me and our team, that's what we're about. And I think our team better understands that now, and they're developing and fostering those relationships as well. So at some point, like you mentioned, you know, in our continuity plan, succession plan, the legacy that we're hoping is to develop that. So whoever takes over our company, this event, that they'll understand is like that's the foundation, doesn't have to be the same, but we want to make sure that they do have that purpose set so they can continue and develop their own culture, develop their own purpose to continue on where we left. It doesn't have to be about Mike, it doesn't have to be about Kerry, but it does have to be about the purpose and what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you, Mike. We've got about 2.5 minutes to go. We're almost in the red zone. Tony, one last point from you. What would be one of your key recommendations? As I said, we got how many founders have we got in the room? Hands up. Can you see that, Mike, on the camera? Yeah. Tony. Sorry. There's a decent number of founders here. But what would you say to those founders around embedding purpose in their business if they haven't already?
Well, firstly, I just hope you're listening to what Mike just said to you then, how he was speaking about his business and how clear he is about what he's doing. And can you imagine walking into your organisation every day with that clarity? You really know what it is you're going to prioritize every day when you've got that clarity. The second piece about it is how easy will it be to create the kind of partnerships and the kind of mentoring support that you need if you can also be so clear about what it is you're trying to do. I would be encouraging any of you, and Mike just gave you the invitation. I'd be encouraging any of you to ask Mike a bit more. I really would, in terms of, where could you start? Where could be a place for you to get going? And of course you're welcome to ask me as well. But Mike walks and talks in your industry every day, I get quite overwhelmed actually when I hear a leader who's taken on the work to such a degree that they can be so clear with themselves and others about what it is. So congratulations, Mike. That's quite amazing, actually.
Thank you, Tony. Mike, congratulations as well. Last word for you. We've got about a minute to go, but love you to wrap it up and any insights that you'd like to share to wrap it.
No, and again, it doesn't have to be a founder. It could be anyone within the organization that really has to identify what your purpose is that you want to see carried through your work and sharing with others. So again, it just doesn't have to be the owners of a business. It's just any leader and anyone that wants to take a lead in terms of how you show up at work and the events in which we produce and serve. But again, it's been just an honor and a pleasure to obviously work with Tony. And again, thank you, Chris, for making that happen. Because again, it's just like one of those moments that you just like will always remember. And this will be another way for me to continue to build who I am and what that next iteration is going to be for me. And Rich, I will be traveling a little bit more just because I do need to share this gospel. And when I am able to identify what's truly important to me, it's about sharing this information and sharing with one another. And this industry means so much because there's so much more we all have to do, and we have that responsibility. So thanks everyone for kind of listening in, and hopefully you can take some of that back and take it back to your homes and places of work as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and we spoke about that on the planning call, isn't it? It's what these people that you've now empowered in the workplace are taking back to their homes, to their community, to wherever they move on. Mike, as always, it's been wonderful. Tony, fearlessly expanding the boundaries of human potential. I think there's a great opportunity for our industry to continue on that trajectory. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend in Hobart, Tony. I think it's probably a little bit cooler where you are than where we are. Get in touch with Rich. I guarantee he'll know all the best pubs to have a beer at based on last night's experience that we saw there. Mike, always a pleasure to have you join me. Thank you so much. Please put it together for Mike and Tony.